loading the thing.
Oh no, it says on my end that we're still loading in, so I'll just.
It says on my end that we've been live for 14 seconds.
Oh, weird.
let's see what YouTube says.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking on right now. Everybody just be patient. Oh, we're here. Perfect.
It
Okay.
does say we're live.
Yay. Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Lauren and I's live stream. This is the Dadvocate. Most of you guys know her. She's a really well-known father's rights advocate. She's got like a huge Instagram. What's your other big platforms?
My big ones are here, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. Surprisingly.
Have you experienced any banning on any platforms?
Actually, yeah. I was banned from TikTok for about 12 minutes. It was really intense. I remember just working on something, and I was like, all right, time to check TikTok. And I pull it up, and it's just like, hey, you've been permanently banned. Would you like to appeal? And I was like, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I remember just being like, and it didn't give me any reason. There was no reason listed whatsoever. And wow. I had just like put in my appeal, and I was like, can I at least have my money? Like,
yeah, no kidding. Yeah, because they do that. If they ban you, then they'll take the money that's in your live streams. I've experienced like multiple bannings, and it's just like that dreadful bubble that pops up. It's like permanently banned. It's like,
yeah, I remember like my heart kind of like jumping out of my stomach for a second. And I actually was kind of emotionally ready. At that point, I was like, remember being so mentally tired of TikTok. I'm sure you can relate. That I was like, I don't care if I'm banned from this platform. But,
yeah.
but I was a little bit nervous. And then like 12 minutes later, they emailed me right away, and they were like, never mind, you're not permanently banned, JK, and then never explained.
Wow. And you haven't been banned ever since?
That's the only ban I've experienced.
And what's your following on TikTok?
Wait, what's up?
What's your following on TikTok?
1.3 million.
Wow. That's crazy. I remember the second last time I got banned, I was just about at 2 million, and then they banned me, and it's just like hidden me from the algorithm ever since.
I do get occasionally like pulled out of the algorithm. It's interesting. Like I've noticed they'll disappear sometimes. But they'll do that. I've noticed with the algorithm, if your videos ever like don't perform amazingly, then that's it for your videos for a little bit until another one performs amazingly, and then they'll be like, okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you just have to like keep trying, essentially. Well, I'm glad that you've had better luck on social media than I have. I feel like your content is like really level-headed. Like I tend to, yell a lot and say controversial things sometimes. So you're definitely a little more level-headed.
No, it's funny you say that, because I've always thought of like me, you, and Emily King as the Powerpuff Girls, and you're definitely Buttercup, like the Powerpuff Girls of like men's issues, and I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm like Blossom, like still kind of fiery, but like you said, like fairly level-headed. You're definitely like the most aggro. You're our Pitbull of the gang. And then Emily King, you cannot get her to say a mean thing at all. She won't even swear. But
I've never heard of Emily King.
How? What? You've never heard of Emily King?
I've never seen that.
Oh, yes, I have.
Oh, yeah.
You've seen her.
Yeah.
She
I didn't recognize the name. Yeah, I follow her on YouTube. Yeah, I'm subscribed to her.
She just started up with YouTube too.
Yeah, so, no, her shorts are popping.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see her videos on YouTube or TikTok all the time too. She does really well. I like her. I've seen a lot of advocates kind of like come and go. Well, they'll like do it for a while, and then either they'll like, figure out that they can't make money from it and they stop, or they, will say something just like super fucking shitty, and people will be like, okay, we see you now. So, but and there's another one, she used to go by the name of Healthy Feminism. Now she just goes by her own name. But I love her. I'll look it up right now. She
I
talks,
might know about her page.
yeah, she does a lot of like men. She's German. I'm gonna have her on my podcast pretty soon because I just think she does a really good. It's Leonidia. I don't know how to say her name.
I'm gonna have to check her out. I bet she's been recommended to me before.
Yeah, I've called not called her out, but I've shouted her out in my videos. I'll pin it in the description after this is posted. Um, so obviously I have to ask you the controversial topic.
Oh, I love it.
What is your opinion on Pearl and her whole ban divorces rant that she's on? Because obviously that like
Yeah.
affects fathers as well, which is something that I think she's maybe not quite thinking through. What are your thoughts on that?
You know what? I'm gonna try to have a very charitable take for Pearl on this one because I know that she's just getting like dog left and right. So, and I feel like that would be very easy for me to do. So I'm gonna try to be really charitable with her on this because like Pearl's one of those people, and there's a lot of we were talking about all of the women in the men's issues discussion. It can be so hard sometimes to tell whose heart is in the right place and who really is just like straight up grifting and just saying things for the views.
Right.
And so Pearl for a while has been appealing to people through very reasonable takes, and then lately has been kind of like going a little off the deep end with the big like ban divorce, take away women's rights to vote. And my most charitable perception of what she's doing is forcing the tough conversations through a very aggressive means.
Yeah.
That's my most charitable interpretation. But in reality, what's most likely happening is that she's just throwing shit out there to blow up, basically.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, she hopped on like a few different trends, and now a lot of people have been pointing out that now that she's because like even her own community is like really like her own community doesn't really like to like doesn't support her. So some maybe do, but I think a lot of them just like to I don't know, just kind of laugh at the train wreck, if I so will say. And evidence of this is like, her views after she started spewing that stuff about like, ban divorces and just this like really radical stuff. Her views on men's topics started to like absolutely plummet. Even now, if you go to her page, like her views are very low. And so now she's tried her hit at like political like commentary, and I haven't watched it. I'm not going to watch it, but if you look into like Pearl's history, and even when she was just setting up a camera and talking to herself in her car when she was driving,
I remember that.
she's very much talked about how she was, just looking for business ventures, and she had this whole business model, and that's all this has ever been for her is like a business model. And it's really irritating because I feel like really solid advocates like, you, the Tin Men, myself, like we're kind of left to just even Emily King, like we're all left to just like pick up these pieces of this like absolute shitstorm that's like not even our mess.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the worst part about it is again, even with me being at my most charitable, unfortunately, it has started to kind of hurt the entire space of trying to take these conversations seriously, much in the same way that radical feminists are actually harming women by making every single person who wants to talk about women's issues look like a crazy, raging, blue haired Karen. Like now people are associating like simple channels where we're like, let's talk about issues that men are going through without necessarily taking away anyone's rights or spreading the oppression.
Right.
you know, now we have to kind of carry the mantle of that, which
Yeah.
sucks.
Yeah, but I agree with you where when you said that it opens the door for bigger conversations, and I've said that in the past too, even about Andrew Tate is like even though these people are really just like pick me up artists, it really it like creates this space where we can now talk about these issues Even though it may not be coming from the best place, like these people, at least we can talk about them. But there's this like, yeah, it's very, it's radical and it's not good for anybody. And like, I don't know if you recently heard what happened with NBC News or if you read that article I sent you.
Oh, I did. I did.
Yeah, so they just like, and just to touch on people like Pearl, like painting this community is awful, she's not helping. And so people like NBC News pick up these stories of that girl that was made that false allegation over a fucking Wi-Fi password and like made everybody known all this information nobody knew before. Nobody knew he was fired from the Coast Guard. It was never even my point, never my stance. My stance was always like, don't make false allegations, especially when children are involved. Hello. And NBC News took that and like really just painted me as a fucking bully. Like men's rights are, this community is a danger to women. Even though I gave her a huge statement on how like violence against women is important to me. I'm a survivor of it. I protect all victims. And she used one fucking quote for me where she asked me if I would agree that I call out women who like abuse their boyfriends on the internet, and I'm like, yeah, I would agree with that. I
And
also said that
cherry
like
picked it. Yeah,
yeah, I'm
she
working
cherry
on
picked it. She tried
how
to make it sound like you were admitting that you have problematic behavior. And that's
yeah.
not what you admitted to.
No, and it's all in the wording as well. And she's like, Roma or Chloe, whatever she referred to me as, Roma posts videos of men being victimized and blames women. And it's like, what are you suggesting? Are you suggesting I'm holding all women accountable for one woman? Because I don't do that. So you must be saying that like the woman isn't actually to blame and it's the man's fault, even though he's clearly being abused in the video. Like,
Exactly. And it's articles like these that they're just trying to shut men up, if we're being honest. Like they're just trying to shut up men because what articles like these and what the end game is kind of pushing the goalpost towards is look, men, you can't post stuff like this or else you're gonna look abusive. And women, you can't take the man's side and stick up for him. Like you can't do that either. So now we're kind of pigeonholed into this space of like, well, men can't call out problematic behaviors in women, and women can't call out problematic behaviors in women. So
yeah, the
where does
only
that leave
people.
us?
Well, you know what's funny is I've been saying for years, and I've been called a quackadoodle even by people in like my own family, in my personal life. I've been saying for years that capitalism has invested its fucking claws into things like media. Like there's corporate interest into spreading these feminist messages now that are like past just like bringing awareness to women. It's like actually lying. Like this reporter admitted to me on the phone that she originally wanted to focus the article on how that woman made a false allegation against her husband, and that's why the internet attacked her. And she said that her editors said no, they didn't feel like that was important enough to the story, and instead they wanted her to write about how this woman came out about abuse allegations and Chloe Roma and the men's rights community bullied her. And so it's like clearly it has to do with what's going to get clicks, what's going to make the most income, who's going to give the most ad revenue. And so it's like very clear in front of my face that they have incentive to hide actual fucking facts just to make men look bad and women look like victims. And it's not women's fault. Little Susie down the street doesn't benefit when the media lies and paints some like awful woman as this victim. Like that's not, and maybe she is a victim. I believe she's a victim. I believe that. I think he's a fucking asshole. But whether you're a victim or not, it doesn't make it okay to make an allegation of a sex crime. Like,
Yeah, I find it, and I also find it very interesting that you cover the story where this video is posted publicly online. You're covering the toxic parts about it, how it's not okay to lie. And then they're going to come at you and say, well, the only reason you made this video and pointed out this way is because you knew it would be lucrative, as if you are the one who made this woman have an absolute mentee bee on camera. Like that doesn't
yeah, like I
erase
had
the truth of the
incentive to do
situation.
it. Yeah. No, I know. It's just a way of like, I've always said that if we are going to really internalize the very true fact, which is women have like full rights and capability over our own autonomy and our fucking brains and how we think, then like we need to accept that like we can also make bad decisions, do stupid things, say stupid things. And it's not, you can't, because their whole angle with it was that he had already been discharged from the Coast Guard, and then 5 days after they had discharged him, he posted that video that he took in before she made allegations. So to them, they were like, well, the only reason why anybody knows she made this allegation is because this guy posted this video as a fuck you to your ex. And so it's like, well, does that mean that we like shouldn't call it out? And then they tried to equate it to the Johnny Depp trial as if, almost suggesting that like Amber Heard was abused, and the only reason why the world favored with him is because he had this video of her looking crazy. And it's like, that's not the same thing here. Like, Johnny Depp is not to fucking blame for women being highlighted as not women, but some women being highlighted as like having the capability to be violent. Like that's such a threatening thing for some reason, and I don't know why we can't just acknowledge that.
Oh, there is a huge upswing in the herd defense lately. I don't know if you've noticed this, but like I've even had people come into my own lives and be like, "Well, I do still take issue with the fact that you defended Johnny Depp." And I'm like,
What?
"I'm not sorry."
Yeah. No, same. I remember like a few years before the trial, the video is still on my YouTube, I think, where I did this like dissection of the audio as soon as it came out. And I experienced that after defending him too, where people were like, "Oh, you're just defending him because this is the train and this is blah blah blah." And I'm like, "No, like I've been calling this stuff out for so long, and I find it really irresponsible how people and that news outlet can see that somebody made a false allegation, admitted they made a false allegation, and then act stupid as to why people might question the other things that they were saying."
Yeah, I wish people could see the nuance is when people want desperately to have spaces where they can speak to other men and women about abuses that they have felt maybe from women. It's not to exclusively create a place or even at all to create a place where we are dogging on all women or anything like that. But
Yeah.
God, these men deserve spaces to talk about these things, to acknowledge that there are pervasive issues instead of always being told like to just shut up because it makes people uncomfortable and makes them look like misogynists.
Well, this might be a little controversial, but I chuckle to myself sometimes, and I think that a lot of radical feminists who think that if you're a men's rights activist, you're anti-woman. I think a lot of them feel that way because they themselves are like anti-man. And
Yeah,
so they
exactly.
hold all men accountable for few men's actions, or which ends up to a lot, but like, come on, more men are fucking good boys than the ones that are out here, beating, raping, murdering. Like, statistics show that 1 in 500 men will commit a violent crime. So, like, that's just not the reality. Isn't that they're all going to be out here with their pitchforks all trying to hurt us, and that's just like, yeah, it's just a really threatening thing apparently. But they hold all men accountable, so I think that they automatically go, well, you're calling this woman out, so you must be a threat to all women. It's like, I don't really think that's a threat.
And you know what's so interesting too is this is another criticism that you, me, anyone who talks about men's issues is going to get. Is they're like, well, the only reason that men even have issues is because of the patriarchy. That's always what they say. And yet the thing is they don't acknowledge the fact that we are constantly acknowledging the patriarchy. It's just that we understand the fact that all of these systemic issues that minimize men, that end up hurting women as well. So much of the root of resolving that is placing value back on men.
Yeah.
That's so much of it is because so much of the concept of patriarchy is built off of dehumanizing men because men are the first ones that we want to use. That doesn't mean that they don't want to use women, but men are definitely the first ones to go, first on the chopping block within
Definitely.
that system. And so
Yeah.
the only way to battle it isn't to say, okay, so now we make sure that men can keep hating themselves. That's literally how you guys perpetuate the issue.
Yeah. No, exactly. Yeah, and it projects things like I see it all the time where they'll be like use things like fragile masculinity or like there's just all of this like really degrading um like rhetoric used in language I see a lot on social media. And it's like, how is that ending the war on misogyny when a man disagrees with you and you say, oh, you're fragile? Like, what do you want him to do? Start punching holes in the wall rather than just communicate? Like, I see it a lot of memes going around, like men are in their princess era or wanting princess treatment. And it's like, all I see is men like just wanting to communicate, doing the things that women have been asking them to do.
I know it's such a fine line because to such a degree, I mean, you and I are both girl moms, and so we understand that it is so important for us to bring up our girls with an assertiveness and the ability to set boundaries and speak again like up to men and be strong in themselves. But there's such a fine line between mothers who value that and then mothers telling their daughters, yeah, if a man even like speaks sassy to you, you just ask him, "Oh, are you in your fifis? Oh, such big emotions." And they're teaching their daughters like instead of actual reasonable, respectful communication skills that you would grant to anybody, they're like, "Yeah, men, you just need to be a bitch."
Well, let me tell you something. I probably shouldn't be saying this, but it's bugged me so much, and my family's anonymous anyway, so I'm saying it. My daughter was on the phone talking with my little sister. There's only a 2 year age difference there. So my daughter's 6 and my sister is 8. And my daughter was talking about like something that was happening in a movie where like the guy was being like really mean and it like slapped the girl or something. And my little sister was like, "How ridiculous, men." And I'm like, "Yo," I was like, you can't say that." And I corrected her. I was like, "You can't, like, you have an older brother. Like, imagine how that makes him feel. Like, that's crazy." But this stuff is like really engulfed
It's so
so
normal.
much.
I
It's
had to
everywhere.
I was really guilty of doing that. I actually like even I caught myself doing it even in the first year that I had my channel and I had already been established as the dadvocate. I was still catching myself unlearning those very socialized behaviors. Like I remember the first time I realized I'm degrading men to fit in socially
Mhm.
was I had started my channel. I'd already been talking about these issues, and I was at my kids' school, like wrapping hot dogs. Some parent volunteered, and one of the moms made some kind of comment like, "Oh, it's a good thing us women are doing this because if the men were in charge, it'd all fall apart." And I politely laughed, and then I was like, "Why am I laughing? I know that's not true. That was a stupid thing to say." Like, and I'm just agreeing with like, let's
Yeah.
crap on men just because it's the polite social thing to do. What
Yeah.
the
Yeah, like you're weird if you say like, that's kind of rude. Yeah, like you become the weird one. I mean, I
you killed the
experience
vibe.
it constantly throughout my life. I've always like lived and breathed men's issues, and a lot of what I talk about, like I talked about that stuff, preached it to my fucking friends when I was a teenager, and I was constantly frustrated by the fact that like random girls would come and hang out with our friends and they would just like, I mean, it still happens. They just make these comments like men are stupid. They just make these like misandrous comments, just like expecting you to agree because you're a woman. And it's like, it's just awkward because then you're the one that's like, no, it's actually not like that. And you're looked at like you're crazy. Like, why don't you have this ingrained hatred for men?
I literally just saw it on one of my personal socials. Like someone that I've always liked and respected made some kind of a post, and it was like men, but the E was censored as an asterisk. I don't know if you've seen people doing this where they literally censor the word men. And then in parentheses, it said beside men, derogatory. Like implied that just the word men is intended to be derogatory.
Yeah.
And I was like, And the saddest part is I know for a fact it's just straight.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
you're gonna have a
I
rough
don't know
time.
why, but we
Not
see
that it
it
would be
everywhere.
justified if it was a lesbian making that comment, but at least that lesbian's gonna have a lot less hard of a time in life.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, it's just very I kind of like I wonder sometimes how they um like how their partners, if they ever have boyfriends, like if they'll ever get married, like how like if there are men who like really I don't know, like tolerate that, like
There are
could
a lot.
love a woman that is constantly like dogging on men because anybody, man or woman, if you catch them saying like, oh, you're not like other men or you're not like other women, don't trust that person because they're like admitting that they have this ingrained belief and bias against that gender and they're you're just
Mhm.
like special, you're not, you know what I mean, like
I do.
that's not normal. But this rhetoric against like especially fathers, I find it funny in not funny, but like, in a lot of sitcoms, TV shows, The Simpsons, Family Guy, even American Dad, like it's just everywhere from like That's So Raven to the dad in Wizards of Waverly Place. Like they're just painted as dumb and like they don't like everything would fall apart if the mom wasn't there.
Exactly. And those are the other things too, where like these are like these characters are written in and then they want to blame everything on men for these characters being written in. Like there's women on these writing teams as well, gleefully contributing to this. Like women are also the ones supporting the trope of throw your husbands under the bus. This has been body humor since the Renaissance era, Is throw
Yeah,
you
no kidding.
under the bus, make a few coins.
I just wonder when we're gonna like I just wonder when that's gonna stop. Like when as a society we're gonna have completely like made the standpoint that that's just like no longer socially acceptable. Like I just wonder when that's gonna come because right now it just feels like it's never gonna
I
stop if like men's rights advocates can't even have a space where and that's like a very liberal space. Like my space is like it's very like we're not out here hating single moms, dogging on trans people. Like my majority of my community is pro-choice. Like I don't it doesn't get much more fucking liberal, but yet it's still NBC News will be like Chloe was mean to her because she came out about abuse. It's like no, it's not what happened.
Yeah, that's the interesting part about men's issues too, is the way people find a way to politicize it. Like especially when you get into the father's rights territory,
Yeah.
there's some weird like immediate correlation between father's rights being a conservative issue.
Yeah.
It's not a conservative issue. That
No,
is the most
most conservative
bipartisan.
families are staying together.
Yeah, that this is something
Yeah.
that affects everybody, every end of the political spectrum. These kids go without dads, they're gonna end up up.
Yeah. Well, that's why I laugh at people like Pearl who says things like we we have to ban divorces because the divorce rate is too high. And I actually got into an argument with my best friend about this like 3 days ago because he was the
No.
same way. He's like, well, everybody is just so selfish and everyone's getting divorced because they're having a little argument. And I'm like, first of all, nobody's doing that. Second of all, my mom was married twice, 9.5 years, both marriages, left because of cheating, tried absolutely fucking everything, and I can confidently say that my mother getting divorced twice does not harm your chances of getting married in the future. Like, why do you care? Why is the divorce rate a political fucking thing?
What they'll say though to that is there are statistics that show and back up that a woman who was married is significantly less likely to remarry. There's statistics for that, but again, this is like correlation does not measure causation type thing.
Right.
Nothing about that statistic being true proves, oh, it's because the women's uh what is it, the thing that they test in voles and birds, her like chemistry was ruined because she slept with more than three guys or whatever. Uh, it's
Or as I
the
like to say, she
chemistry
walked
knew
past 10 foreskins.
it. Yeah, I like. Matt, can we talk about that? By the way, what is the concept of that again? It's not polarity. It's on the tip.
Polygamy?
No, it's the concept of, someone should say it in the chat, of if you the it's specifically with women, that the more people you sleep with, like, the less likely you are to be able to emotionally pair bonding.
Yeah, is there any like evidence of this?
There's not a lot of studies on humans. So here's the thing, though. I will say this. I think that there's probably some truth to it. Like, I think that
Right.
if you really get into a habit of like disregarding the emotional aspect of intercourse, that will kind of like get you on a new train of thought and how you think of it. I think that that's very possible, but I don't think it's an exact measurable metric. Like, every five penises takes away like 10% of your ability to love. Like,
Yeah, like I need to see something more. Because one thing that, even just from like a psychology standpoint, men and women who experience heightened promiscuity, a lot of them actually have a history of being like molested or
yeah,
like
that's true.
raped as children. And so a lot of victims will, like, it's just very freeing to say, like, I'm doing this because I want to. And I think that there's like, maybe that could be a part of, why there's some trouble bonding because of like trauma in the past, because I've never seen anything that's like you said, for every five penises. And I think that goes off of the assumption that everybody finds that like intimacy through sex. Because I know for myself, like I find it more intimate to like snuggle, have a conversation about something meaningful that I don't open up to many people about. Like that's
Yeah.
more intimate to me. So I think a lot of people maybe just go off the assumption that everybody, specifically women, are like supposed to view sex as this like connection and like pair bonding. And like, some am I pair bonding to my dildo? Like, does my dildo affect that? Like, that's no. I mean, it's an
That's a
honest
good question.
question. Like,
Mine are
what I mean? Does masturbating affect that? Does like, because I think it all. My mom was born in '84, I think, or I don't know. She's 40, and she said that when she was growing up, it was like very much stigmatized that women who had orgasms were whores.
Oh,
It was
yeah,
like, you
we're
should
still
not talk about having an orgasm or enjoying sex because you're not supposed to.
yeah, I think that's another area where men would benefit from kind of, I guess, like, chilling out on women wanting to discuss their sexual interests a little bit more. Like, I respect that men would prefer their partners to maybe have less experience with that than they do. I respect there are a lot of
I
guys
don't
like
think there's
that.
anything wrong with that as long as you're on that boat as well. If you're like, I don't have a lot of experience,
But I think that most guys that we talk to really, really value their woman being open and communicative about things that they like, things that they want to try, things that they've maybe seen in a video and are interested in.
right.
But we, like, growing up as a woman, we are so strongly advised to never discuss that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's also the difference between, of course, there's a difference between us communicating those things publicly on our social medias versus
To our
comfortably.
partners. Yeah. I find a lot of the men that I see on social media, and again, like I'm seeing these men on like the Whatever podcast. I don't watch Fresh and Fit, but I've seen a few of their clips come up where these men who are spouting these like low body count values will then turn around and, like, I shit you not, that one guy on the Whatever podcast, literally 2 minutes after saying that men were disgusted by a body count over double digits, he throws out his number, which is apparently 200. And the chat is like, and I'm sitting over here like, like, I'm just,
Wow.
anybody, what are you doing? Like, there's this, I think at the end of the day, what I laugh the most about is how like arbitrary, even just like how many people we've slept with. Like, how important is it if I could tell my partner I've only slept with two people and really it's 50, but they never know the difference? How important can something be if it's like really just based off of like whether or not you're trusting what that person's saying. Do you know what I mean? Because, like, I myself, I have a body count under 2 digits, but I know that when I talk about that, people think I'm lying because apparently my number is like the go to number that women who have high body counts use to,
Oh,
like,
wow.
make themselves
What's the
seem like they
magic
don't.
number that we're supposed to be using?
Well, and that's exactly it. Like, it doesn't, at the end of the day, it doesn't really fucking matter. Like, I think it's the most ridiculous argument. And a lot of these guys, when I talk to them, I'll say, like, do you realize that you want your woman to have a low body count? You want her to not post shit on social media that makes her attractive because you're insecure about yourself. And that's not like a, haha, you're insecure. That's like, society has taught men right from very little to compete with themselves, with other men. Everything's a competition. So when a guy sees a woman that he likes that has a high body count, in his mind, he's like, oh shit, that's all these men that I'm gonna have to compare myself to. I'm gonna have to live up to that experience. I'm gonna have to be better than them. And when it comes to your girl posting stuff on social media, she's opening the floodgates for all of these other opportunities. And if you're not confident enough in yourself, then these things will bug you. And so I just challenge, like, a lot of men who place so much importance in body count, specifically because they think a woman's value is, like, lowered. Like, I just challenge them, like, is it her value that's lowered, or do you really think that, like, your value is lowered? And that's what makes you feel shitty about it.
I also just think, like, why are we asking questions we don't want to know the answers to anyway? I've
Yeah.
never asked someone that question, to be honest.
I don't think I've ever even been asked that question,
Yeah, I that's not a question that I ever
like, by
ask.
a partner. I have on the internet, but not by a partner. I just think that most people don't care. And I think,
Yeah,
like, for a lot of women who consume a lot of social media and maybe don't have, like, a lot of men in their lives, like, please talk to the men in your lives because I promise you the majority of them, like, don't care. They don't think that you, like, not like you or any woman just, like, loses value because she's had partners that she's been intimate with and it hasn't worked out. Like, who cares?
there are people in the chat saying that they prefer women with higher bodies. Like, and my coach in jujitsu is one of those people. Actually, I had this conversation with him once, and he was like, "Nope, I was with one virgin. We'll never do it again." And my husband said the same thing. He was like, "My with a virgin was the worst experience of my life," and I knew from then, like, I need a girl with some experience. I will never ever be with a virgin again. So some guys are like that.
Yeah, well, because that's exactly it, and I think there's, like, certainly a stigma for women as well, where, like, there are a lot of men who are like, I need that low body count. But then they're like, and I've seen it as well. Like, I have tons of guy friends that I grew up around, and, like, I've personally heard them dogging on how their girlfriend doesn't know what to do in bed or is shitty at this and shitty at that, and it's like, well, communicate first of all. Don't
Why
be
don't you
telling
teach him?
me. Tell her. Watch some videos together. But also, like, if you want a porn star, you're gonna have to, like, have somebody that, like, either
You gotta
has
make
been in a long-term relationship or has had multiple partners. Just get an STD check. Like, I think that they think that maybe there's, like, some of,
hold,
like, the other man's deep. Oh,
hold on. I actually gotta jump off. There's
you know
something
what?
going on.
Me as well, because I can hear my child crying in the background,
Oh
and I
my
don't know if
god,
you
both
guys
of us
can hear
have.
it. So it was a really nice chat, almost 40 minutes. So it was a good chat, but we should definitely do it again and do a longer one.
Yeah, I hate to leave unexpectedly, but we'll do this again, everybody.
Okay. It was really nice having you.
Bye.
Bye.